Hello guys and welcome to the video. So today I'm bringing you guys another beginner's guide for the Ice Beast. Now I am here on my 3-star counts, do take that into consideration, but it doesn't necessarily matter. In fact, I think this helps with my credibility. Whatever, we'll get into the video. First things first, I'm going to assume that you guys already know why you're here. So you already know about the rewards, you already know all about that, which is going to make this video a whole lot shorter, which is good. Also, I'm not going to just straight up suggest teams. I will suggest units, but I think it's wrong to, just suggest teams, because some people will take those teams and they'll just run with it, not knowing why those units work or whatever. I want you guys to know why those units work, because when those people who just take the teams and run with it and they don't know why it works, when those teams fail, they're going to wonder, hey, why is it failing, right? I want you guys to understand why those units are there, so if the team does fail, you could fix those units. Anyways, we're going to start off with the strategy info, going through the skills, and I'll be giving you guys my own thoughts as we go through it. We'll try not to spend too much time, and then from there, we'll do a couple Ice Beast runs. So first things first, strategy info. Thorn of Despair. It targets the allies on the front line first, and then inflict damage greatly increases as the allies have lower defense. So of course, the more defense you have, the less damage you're going to take. This is especially important because in the beginning of the game, you're probably ruining a lot of your monster's speed, HP. Because the defense isn't really that much of a factor when you're going into giants. I mean, it is if you know how to cleanse the defense break off before the giant deals any damage to you. But essentially, most people are building speed HP. Here you want to build like speed HP defense, or just try to get some defense on the units. I'll show you actually a good amount of defense would be something like my Bernard here. He has like 800 bonus defense. Some decent HP, some decent speed. Still looks pretty good, right? So, units with high defense. Another thing to consider is this does mention front line first. So, if you don't have any units in the front line, so if all your front line units died because they have terrible defense, your backline units are obviously going to be the ones getting attacked. It's not just only front line. So, you do want units that are in the front to protect your damage dealers in the back. So, for example, something like this would what your thing would look like, and then you have all of your damage dealers in the back like this, right? This is not the team, right? This is not a team. But like your Lulu and Bernard, who are very tanky, hopefully, are the ones taking all of the damage, while your units in the back line, who don't have exactly the greatest amount of defense, are the ones dealing damage. So, that's how you should be placing your units. Frontline units are the ones with tons of defense. Your backline are your damage dealers, or just your general supports who can't take that much damage. So with that being said, let's move on to the Freezing Roar skill, or basic info. Freezing Roar puts the allies under the freezing air effect. The max HP of the allies under the freezing air effect will be greatly decreased, and the damage increases proportionate to the remaining freezing air amount. So obviously you're wanting to get rid of as much of this as possible. The more of this that's on you, the more damage that the boss is going to deal, and you're susceptible to some of the effects that you're going to see later on in this strategy info. So you really do want to focus on it. This isn't something that you can just ignore, right? For some bosses, you're like, oh, if I go into the Giants boss floor, I don't really have to care about stripping the attack buff because I nuked down the boss. It doesn't really matter. This is one of those things that you have to pay attention to, because it will mess you up. But as you'll see, as we'll mention in a bit. So again, the boss does damage proportionate to the amount of freezing air. The freezing air effect will be substantially removed proportionate to the increased amount of attack bar. So use skills that increase your attack bar or keep the attack speed high to remove the effect quickly. So effectively, the more turns you take, the less of this effect that there is. So units like Bernard help really well here, because Bernard gives an attack speed increase, or attack speed buff, and he increases his attack bar. Units like Megan with her third skill, where she increases attack bar, work here. Units like Bastet work here. I believe, Bastet, where she increases the attack bar of all allies, works well here. So, do take this into consideration when fighting the boss. Frozen Rageful Breath, this is like the boss's final skill. This is like the ultimate skill on the boss's list. You don't want to get to this point, especially early on. This could nuke your team. I mean, you'll get wiped out unless you have really good runes on your units. Like, I assume I have really good units or really good runes on my units, because my units can tank this, right? But let's read through it real quick. Frozen Rageful Breath inflicts great damage to all allies, and the allies will be inflicted with even greater damage if there's remaining freezing air effect. You must put the boss under the groggy state before the boss uses Frozen Rageful Breath, or removing the freezing air effect as much as possible to minimize the damage. Also, the battle will end when the boss uses the Frozen Rageful Breath 3 times, so you must inflict as much damage as possible before the battle ends. Typically, you don't want this guy to use it even once. You want a team that deals enough damage that the boss just essentially gets nuked down. And not just because of the Frozen Rageful Breath, but also because of the Freezing Roar, which we'll get to in a second. So, Ice Sweep is a very important skill as well. All these skills are important, but this is especially important because, we'll read through it real quick. Attacks all enemies 2 times using its gigantic body to put the enemy that are under the freezing air effect under the freezing effect. That's why I'm saying it's important that you do not ignore this. Do not ignore the freezing air effect, because when this boss gets the Ice Sweep, which this is his 3rd skill, I believe, in his rotation, right? He uses a different skill, every once in a while. This is the 3rd skill he'll use, which means that you want to remove the freezing air effect before he uses this. Otherwise, he freezes your healers, he freezes your buffers, and he freezes your damage dealers, which means you're there in that fight longer, which means you can just eventually lose because of this. You want to have units that either have immunity to prevent the freezing, or again, units like Bernard and Megan and Bastet or whomever to remove this freezing air effect before he does this skill. Otherwise, you're done, right? And on top of that, again, there's the increased damage. So for the Freezing Roar, we, again, already went over this. The important part about this whole thing right here is the first part, where it says, granting freezing air effects on all enemies with an Ice Roar. The freezing air effect becomes stronger every time it is used. This is really important. So it's not just enough to build a team that's super duper tanky, somewhat like this, because the boss will use it over and over again, and it'll become much more difficult to beat the boss. You want maybe at most 2 units in the front, and then all your damage dealers in the back. Nuke down the boss. That's what you want to do. So have a good amount of damage dealers so he's not stacking up the Freezing Roar. Other than that, there's not really much else other than the Twisted Body passive. So the boss gains immunity against all harmful effects while he's up and awake. The only time you can ever deal or put debuffs on the boss is when he's in his groggy state, which you only get once. That's when you get units like Crow or Naomi to deal as much damage as possible. But other than that, not really too much to consider except for this final part where it says additionally increases the damage received from wind monsters by 50% and increases the damage dealt to fire monsters by 50%. So wind monsters are essentially the units that you're wanting to bring in this dungeon. Wind units with high damage output and high defense. With that, you're going to win. So with that into being considered, with all the skills being considered, all that stuff, let's get into actually making the team. Okay, so here we are. We're in the preparation screen before the battle. Let's make our team. So after going through all the skills, first things first is we need Bernard. Bernard works here. Again, units like Harazveil, the Wind Barbarian King, work well here. Bastet works well. Just units that can increase attack speed or increase attack bar. So for a beginner, Bernard does well here. This is what he looks like, his stats right here. You can take a quick look at his runes. If you want to get a better look at them, pause the video. But good speed, good defense, good HP. He's going to tank perfectly fine here. You could also bring units like Shannon. Well, the only thing that Shannon is really providing is her attack and defense buff. That, and she's pretty tanky herself, which you can get a look at her runes here. HP, wow. I'm doing really good with her defense. But, I think a better unit might be Megan. Reason being is Megan is actually more useful when it comes to increasing the attack power and defense of all allies, and she increases, again, attack bar by 20%. So here are her runes real quick. defense, HP. So we'll have that in the front. Now you could bring a healer like Lulu or Iragar or Fron can work, but place them in the back row, in my opinion. For this run, we will not have Lulu. I mean, we could do one run with Lulu and then another run without Lulu. We'll put Lulu in the front, I suppose. And now you want your damage dealers. So your damage dealers like Naomi work well here too. You could use Naomi. You could use Crow. Any of these units that do damage based off of harmful effects, it will be very helpful when you get to the groggy state of the boss. I'll bring units like Ramahan as well. We could bring Eileen. You could also bring units like, if we had to, we could bring units like Ardella here. My Ardella is not 6-star. I could 6-star her, but we'll go with this right here. But just any of your damage dealers, twins work, all that stuff work. We will take a look at some after the fight, but let's start with this right here. So I have Bernard as the lead. He has 30% attack power lead. So take that into consideration, right? Take that. So first things first, you see that combination that Bernard and Megan just did. We're getting out so many turns before the boss even does his Thorn of Despair. So you see both Megan and Bernard didn't even have freezing air effect on them. And then even my damage dealers in the back, before the boss does a sweep, got rid of the freezing air effect. So no one gets frozen, no damage is being taken, and we've essentially been nuking down this boss. Now the problem with this team right here is because of Lulu, the team is more safe than it is strong. So we're not dealing as much damage as we should be. It is better for us to have just the 2 supports in the front and then our 4 damage dealers in the back. Now if your units are not as tanky as mine, it might be better to bring Lulu and see if you can out-tank the damage that the boss is dealing to you. But I would suggest that you don't even let that boss get his second freezing roar off like my boss did. Because by the time you enter the 3rd phase, because right now we're in the groggy state. By the time we enter the 3rd phase, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for us to remove the freezing air effect, as you're about to see. So remember, note, when we first started this battle, our supports completely had the freezing air effect removed by the time they even got to Thorn of Despair. But look at this. You're about to see. Take a good look. They still have the freezing air effect. So that's obviously not good. So you're noticing that it's becoming much more difficult for even my units to remove. So imagine if you're new to the game, it's going to be especially difficult to remove. So he's already getting the freezing roar off, which is not that good, which means we're more prone, or we're prone to being frozen again and more damage coming in. So boom. But thankfully we do have Lulu. And the good thing about Ramahan, by the way, Ramahan probably looks like an outsider in this team. Look at that. All of our units are frozen, which means we're going to get that frozen rageful breath. Thankfully, the freezing air effect has been removed, but for anybody else, this would have killed your team. Like, look at that. We still took a lot of damage. But, yeah, for you just want big damage. I can't remember what I was going to say. But Ramahan, he does damage based off of his defense. So he could be in the front row taking damage while you have units in your back row. And then he also does damage according to, like, lost HP. Oh, I can't show you right here. I want to make a video on Ramahan. I think Ramahan is a really cool unit still. I don't know how many people still use him, but... Okay, Ramahan's actually going to move next. So, I want to show you real quick. So, this one deals damage proportionate to your defense. If the target dies, you instantly gain another turn. The damage increases according to the enemy, or increases as the enemy's HP status decreases. So, check this out. 30k. That's not that bad. So, we won that thing. So, 3.5 million, triple S. Pretty cool, right? So we're going to try this one more time, but we're going to go for a much more dangerous build, meaning that we're losing Lulu, and we're going to be putting Ardella in. I threw runes on Ardella real quick. Her runes are not that amazing, but speed crit damage attack. I mean, her run's actually not that bad. And she's fully skilled up, too. So she deals damage based off of her attack speed, which is good, because Bernard and all that stuff. And then she could do damage based off of harmful effects as well. She also has a better attack lead, which is going to help with this fight. So maybe, just maybe, we beat this boss. I can't guarantee it. I haven't tested her before the video, so we'll see. So units that, I mean, when you're building your team, I would highly suggest that you try to fill off like a checklist, right? Have a unit that increases attack speed. Have a unit that increases attack bar. Jesus Christ, look at how the boss is not going to get the freezing roar off, which is good. This is really good. I did not know this was going to work. Imagine if Ardella was 6-starred. So, try to fill off that checklist, right? Attack bar increasing, attack speed, buffs, a little bit of healing maybe. You might not need healing. I mean, you see my team only has like one healer, and that's Eileen. And even Eileen is not really healing. Our team is just straight up tanking it. If your team is fast enough, you'll be good. But, you see, I mean, this is all 3 stars. I mean, yes, there's a lot of 2As here, but there's still 3 stars. And this team is completely destroying this boss. I mean, look at that. We're just annihilating the boss. We're still going to get frozen, potentially. Ardella might die, for sure. Look at that. Thankfully, we had Eileen here. But, try to have good damage dealers. Twins work really well here. Harass Veil works well here. We'll look at the monster info after this fight. I don't know if... yeah, wait, never mind. I have shown you guys the runes to all these units. At the very least, the stats. We might... We're gonna... Do we beat the boss before the Rageful State? Man, I'm squeaking hard, man. My voice was squeaking. We might. No, he gets it off. Okay. Ardella and Megan die here. I think everybody else lives. Look at that. Look at Ardella. Oh my god. So you see, this is a bit of a riskier team. If Ardella was 6-starred, we'd have beaten the boss before he even got to that skill. Look at Bernard. Bernard is such a tank, man. Did we get a new score? Is that a higher score than before? No. Still triple S. Anyways, there you go. So, to give you guys a good idea, just before we end the video, let's take a look at the strategy info. I'll tell you guys how really good these monsters are that are up here. I'll tell you what they're used for and why they work. So Crow is still good here despite not having the attribute advantage and not being able to place harmful effects until Groggy State 1, because when the boss is in the Groggy State, you're going to be able to get a really high score. So when you do inevitably beat the boss, you will get triple S no matter what. So you could put Crow and then the rest of your team, right? So you saw how like I put Ardella in, and Ardella died before the Groggy State. You could put Crow instead of Ardella, and you would get a really, really high score. But he's also really good because he has his combo, so he can attack with other units. And if you have a team that's almost kind of like mine, where you have a couple damage dealers in there, you're going to be able to get out tons of damage before the boss even gets off his Frozen Roar too often. Sabrina and Talia are good in their own respective ways. Sabrina is good because of her passive where it says she inflicts 20% more damage on enemies with no beneficial effects. The Water Beast or the Ice Beast doesn't have beneficial effects, so you're dealing 20% increased damage. Talia is also good here because as the enemy's HP decreases, she deals more damage. So in combination, and it's like the Boomerang Warriors benefit off of that as well, if I recall. I believe so. That, or am I tripping? No. Only the Chakram Dancer increase off of the 20%. Anyways, Iragar is really good. You can get him out of the Ancient Coin Shop. I recommend going for him first. He has an attack plus 38% lead. He puts Vampirism on your, or Blood Contract on your allies, which allow them to heal by the damage they do, which can be good. So instead of having Eileen, I could put him, and that would work completely fine. And he also can dish out a good amount of damage, but it's mainly because of this. He puts the healing buff on your allies, plus attack buff for 3 turns every 4 turns, and then he has a leader skill, which is really good. So you could replace your healer in the front. You could just put another tanky unit or whomever. Riley works really well. She has immunity, attack buff, tons of healing, just endless. I mean, you guys have probably faced Riley in the arena tons of times. You already know how good she is. Harass Veil is good for his 3rd skill. He increases attack power and attack speed of all allies. He deals 100% increased damage when he's in his berserk state. He has branding. He can dish out good damage too. Naomi, for obvious reasons, harmful effect rate, wind unit, 2A. Tons of damage. Lucian, I'm not too sure about. I mean, you could use his attack lead, 33%. On top of that, if you have him speed tuned correctly, he could go first and ignore defense of the enemy, which you can actually dish out quite a bit. You could dish out probably 40, 50k for some people. And that could set up your units like your twins that do damage based off of the enemy's HP decreasing. So it could be a really good setup unit. Jisun is good with her healing and her attack buff. I believe Jisun has an attack buff, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, increase the attack power for 2 turns every 3 turns. Thrawn, for obvious reasons, immunity, attack buff. What more could you want? Savannah, she's a really good damage dealer. She's going to deal tons of damage, actually. She does damage based off attack speed, which you want attack speed. Just like how Ardella is good on attack speed, Savannah is good on attack speed. Feng Yan, he increases his attack bar whenever he's attacked. And he deals damage that is proportionate to his defense. So he's good as a frontline unit. Tashar, pretty obvious. He's just comboing a whole, or proccing his passive a whole bunch. And Bastet has attack bar increasing. So it's like all these units are good for something, obviously, right? But I'm not going to take up too much more of your guys' time. I think this video explains pretty well on how to beat the Ice Beast. If you guys have any more questions for whatever reason, ask in the comments. But I wish you guys luck on beating the Ice Beast. I really do hope you guys beat it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.